Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Alabama Special Programs Power Up. We wanted to go on and get this meeting started a little earlier to let all of you get in and get settled. And we'll start in just a few minutes after our attendees list kind of stops trickling in. All right. It looks like we are holding up. As soon as I start speaking, I see more people coming in. All right. All right. Well, let's go on and get started. I want to thank you so much for joining our Alabama Special Programs Power Up webinar for we're in quarter 3. It's hard to believe it's back to school season. I hope that your back to school season is going well, and I hope that Special Programs is helping you kind of ease back into the swing of things by hopefully being and working as you want it to. So I just want to remind you that registration and recordings for the Alabama Power Up will be made via email. You will get an email registration to register for the email. To register for the email, sorry, to register for the session, and then you'll get an email once the recording is available in community. This will be available in community within the next day or two once the recording has been submitted to our enablement team. So just wanted to keep you abreast of that information. I also wanted to let you know today that we do have a chat feature available, and we will also be utilizing the Q&A feature. So if you have questions, if you could use the Q&A feature, that way we can save those questions and answers. We can share those out with the Alabama team if needed, but we can also refer back to them for future planning. We'll do our best to answer your questions as they come in, and we always try to save some time at the end. So today on our call, we have myself, Robin Skidmore. I am I should have put Senior Education Impact Consultant on there, not my age, but I did get to kind of move up the chain a little bit. So that was exciting news for me. Stacy Royster is on here as usual from ALSD. Dana Peterson is joining us from our Special Programs Support Team. And we are awaiting the arrival of Gail. I'm hoping she's going to be able to attend today, but if something has happened and she's not able to attend, we'll be glad to share her information with you. So for today's agenda, I just did the introductions. We're going to hear some updates from your state team at ALSDE, and about the modules. Some of your module representatives are here to speak with you today, product, and then some support case trends. I'm going to give you a few best practices to kind of leave you with and to think about and maybe start using on your own. I'm going to show you how you can share a report with someone that is working off of the same database as you, and because you are a statewide implementation, a statewide go live, you guys can share reports with each other. It's very, very simple. So if you've got a really great report you want to share, so listen up during the best practices today so you can learn how to do that. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some reporting security best practices. And then I'm going to touch base on student profiles, a section on the profile called events, and then another section on there called audit log. And I'm just going to touch base on those. All right, so let's do some state updates. I'm going to turn it over now to Stacy, who is going to share some updates on the behalf of ALSDE.
Perfect, and thank you, Robin, and welcome to everyone in here. Robin, if we'll go ahead and start through the slides. So the first thing that I wanted to bring to your attention, if you have not been made aware of this, but last year the state hired some wonderful report writers and developers who's been working on some customizations for SIS. And one of the first things that we had them tackle were creating enterprise reports that would help you with some of your subpopulations of demographic data. And we built a beautiful report that will show you from the SIS side all of your students you have in special program that are EL, gifted, 504, or special education. We took this report and we gave you 3 versions of it because enterprise reports are very locked down through security. You might be a district where one person handles all of these sub pops, and you might be a district where you're like, nope, only this person needs to see special ed students and only these people need to see EL. So, depending on how you are set up, you have one of 3 different versions of this report that you can install and then give security rights to. But regardless, they do give the same type of information. You'll get a bar graph of each of the different sub pops. So, here is an example. By the way, these student names are all fake for my sandbox, so you're not, seeing any student data that you shouldn't see. But you see the bar chart on the left at the top gives you the counts of your EL, your 504, your special education, and your gifted students. The pie chart to the right actually gives you a breakdown of your primary exceptionalities for your special education students. So we bring you some pretty dynamic graphs in this report. And then below it is a, let's say, Excel type spreadsheet that you can filter, sort, print out, whatever you need to do to give you an easy way to view your students. So if you do not yet have access to enterprise reports, I highly encourage you to reach out to your district power school SIS administrator and ask that they install these reports to give you access. Just as a FYI, there's also a lot of reports on there for things like your Title I students, your homeless students, your EL, anything that you could want on their home language survey. Take a look at that link that's at the top of this page. Look through all of those reports because there's some pretty dynamic ones out there now. And next slide. Just as a reminder, we are actually in our 20-day calculation window for the state for that big 20-day report that is always captured the 3rd Friday in October that has our ADM collection numbers. That's what's basically used for funding for the upcoming school year. Everyone needs to be hot and heavy looking at attendance errors, and a lot of people who are in special education know that these are where we get those errors from special programs like invalid primary exceptionality and things such as that. So make sure that as a special ed coordinator that you are working hand in hand with your accountability person who is looking at this error listing report to see if you might need to provide any assistance on any of those. Because any student that is left with an error message when the collection is captured will be removed from the ADA counts for funding, and we do not want any districts to lose funding on a student because of an error in their data. So make sure we're looking at that between now and that 3rd Friday in October. Next slide. Just as a reminder, we do have the Alabama Power School website where we have tips, tricks, videos, handouts, you name it, for everything Power School related in our state. And there is a dedicated page to information for special programs. We do a lot of short tutorials of just, how do I need to update the EL status on a student? How do I need to print something in mass? There are a lot of tutorials on there. There are also copies of the original recordings that we all had from the implementation. So if you have a brand new person that you have hired that has no special education experience in special programs and they need to know about profiles, keyword tables, all of that original training is linked inside of here that you can view at any time and use as professional development for your staff. Next slide. Also, remember that every Monday I send out the ALSD weekly newsletter that gives you updates on all of the Power School products. So if you work in the SIS, you'll see updates there. If you work in special programs, you'll see updates there. As Robin stated at the beginning, the recording of all of not just Alabama's power-ups, but even the national power-ups, when those are out there, I make sure that everybody's aware of those. And when the recordings come out, I always link you to those recordings over in the community. So if you do not receive this and you're wondering how do you get on this email distribution list, make sure that you have been listed as either a special education coordinator or as a Power School contact for your district, and you'll be able to receive this email every Monday morning. And that is assigned through the Education Directory by your district office. And next slide. Also, remember that we have weekly ALSDE open office hours available. So every Tuesday at 2:30 and every Thursday at 11 o'clock, you can join this link right here with the Password Power School and ask pretty much any question that you want. We usually have anywhere from 40 to 60 attendees every week, and it's just open forum for you to ask to see demos of stuff, whatever it is that you need. And we do get a lot of SIS questions and special programs questions. In fact, today we went through how to go through and write a small standard report on how to find an original eligibility date for users. So anything that you ever have, if you just on the spur need a question answered, you can always join these office hours to receive assistance from both myself and your peers from across the state. And next slide. We also have the YouTube channel. There is actually a playlist dedicated to all of our special programs videos on there. Anything from learning how teachers gain access to special programs to how do you go deep dive into keyword tables. All of it is in there. So make sure that you have that YouTube link bookmarked so that you can refer back to any videos anytime you might need them. And last but not least, the most underutilized resource out there in the state is the Power School Campus PD Plus repository. This is a subscription that the Alabama State Department pays on every district's behalf. And this is real-time professional training on every topic inside of SIS and special programs. So if you are green, brand new to special programs, and you know that this is not something you can learn all in one day, you can actually set up a learning path inside of here that will take you through all of the different parts and pieces of how to use special programs. One thing to keep in mind, it's not Alabama specific, so you have to remember about our laws that are in place in addition to everything federal that has to be done with IDEA. But it will tell you how to use the program, how to work with profiles on students, how to search general students, and things such as that. So very beneficial. If you do not have access to this, contact your district Power School administrator or district tech director, and they can get you and log in to this. And if you need help with that, feel free to reach out to me, and we can get this ball rolling in your district. And I think the next slide just shows some specific types of learning paths. If you'll, yep, you can see that there's different types of curriculums in here. So, you know, if you're a counselor, need to know how to schedule, I can put you on a path specific for that. Or if I'm a special programs office administrator person versus a special programs coordinator versus a special programs help person, like it goes very granular and has lots of learning paths that you can take at any time. And again, this is free training available. And they even print out little certificates at the end of each module in here that I know some districts have allowed districts to enter in professional learnings as external PD credit and gave them professional development hours for. So that's something to talk about in your district if you want to allow that option for your users.
I'd like to piggyback on what Stacy just said to let you know that I do meet regularly with the writers for PD Plus. There are some new updated courses in there that are a little bit more interactive. And when I say that, it's, you know, it's kind of like it's a little cartoon, but don't take it, you know, it's in a cartoon, but it's PD, you know, relevant. And it goes through, like I watched one the other day on how to create a document, just the basic steps on creating a document, and it just makes it a little bit more engaging. So we are updating those courses, just to kind of put that little plug in there as well, Stacy, to know that there's some new ones coming.
That is great to hear.
All right, and I think I skipped a slide. I did. So thank you so much, Stacy. I'm going to turn it over now to for some module updates. You guys are going to hear from Emily, Kamichi, Ayana, and Maria.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Kamichi Green, Special Education Services. I wanted to just provide a few updates. The child count data collection is fast approaching and will begin next month. If you have not done so already, please remember to update your federal count date in globals. It should show as 10/2/2023. Just a reminder that the snapshot must be taken on Monday, October 2nd, 2023, Please do not take it prior to the second, and definitely please do not take it after the second. It must be taken on Monday, October 2nd. The data collection window will extend for 2 weeks, so you have until from October 2nd to the 16th to actually submit the reports. A few reminders. Students must have a current eligibility and a current IEP, and must have documentation that services were being provided on October 2nd. If you haven't done so already, please begin reviewing your child count warnings and errors report to ensure that your child count student listing contains accurate information. And remember that all errors must be corrected prior to submission. We will host a webinar on September 21st at 10 o'clock a.m. We will record it. I will drop the link in the chat, and we will also send it to all coordinators and directors via email. So please be looking out for that. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. This is Emily Hurst with Special Education Services Gifted. Just wanted to talk about our upcoming Gifted Referral Snapshot. It is due on October 20th. And in your globals, you should see that the snapshot date range is October 2nd of 2022 to October 1 of 2023. So when you run your tracking log report, those are the dates that you will enter to review your report. We can go to the next slide. So we have directions for reviewing the Gifted Referral Tracking Log in our Gifted Coordinator Schoology group. So if you have any trouble accessing those, just let me know. You can email me and we can get those to you. Remember, when you are reviewing your information, that you will need to review both the Gifted Referral Tracking Log report and the Gifted Referral Tracking Log without assessments. And again, we have directions for both of those in our Schoology coordinator group. You need to compare the data from these reports to your snapshot once you populate it to make sure that everything is matching up. And go ahead to the next slide. Some things that you can look for when you're reviewing your data is look for any missing data on your report. If your system is a system that screens referrals, make sure that the screening decision is marked. Also make sure that that E column from the eligibility form was marked correctly, and look for aptitude test scores being entered for all tests that were administered. During our regional trainings, we did a Gifted Referral Tracking Log activity where we reviewed, so should be very familiar if you attended the training. Remember that you can populate your snapshot prior to October 20th, but please do not submit it until October 20th. Thank you.
And Maria wasn't able to make it, but she did want to include this slide right here for all EL coordinators on the call. Just remember that all plans are now entered in elevation into that dashboard. And if you need assistance with that, make sure to contact your EL regional specialist. But also remember that the status and dates must still be kept updated inside of special programs, because that's where the reporting of the status feeds back into the state reporting portal. She connected some documents on here for English learner support documents. So some of the framework guides and the ASAP manual, so that you would have those. Plus she listed all of the regional contacts for each region and their email addresses, so that if you weren't sure who served your region, you would know who to reach out to.
All right, good afternoon. I am Ayana Long, and I work in the school safety section. So I just want to give a few updates on Section 504. On the profile page, now you can, the grade level and the school fields are now editable. So even though we know it will basically transfer over from that profile page. On that page, you can now go in and change the grade as well as the school on the new forms. And I'd also like to remind you of the upcoming 504 conference. Class is now responsible for the 504 coordinators conference, and they've merged together to have that conference with Julie Weatherly, who normally does 504 at the Shore. It's not only face to face, there is also a virtual option. It will be in December, the 7th through the 8th at the Marriott Hotel in Birmingham. I've added the link here, but I will also add the link in the chat for the upcoming conference for 504 coordinators.
All right. Thank you for the module updates. I do want to let everyone know that I dropped Kamichi's link into the chat. I couldn't tell if it dropped to everyone or just the host and panelists. I redropped it. So that link from me is actually Kamichi's link. So just don't miss it. All right, Stacy, thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over now to Gail, your product owner, and she has some product updates for us today. Hey, Gail.
Hey everyone, I hope everyone's having a good day. Just to let you know, we are on the verge of releasing an update to special programs. I just got to a little while ago today the final items tested. So Stacy, I'll reach out to you after this meeting to talk about the deployment of the update. And so some of the items, there's a few more I didn't list here. I didn't want to have my part go too long. But for the most part, the changes that we're making are listed here. And we hope to release sometime tomorrow, if not over the weekend. So a few of the items, the ACAP testing support document. If you remember, that was a brand new document that was implemented in January. And from feedback that we got from y'all and from the assessment group, Susan and Maggie, we wanted to modify it a little bit to streamline it. So one of the things that was changed is the pre-act the name of it was changed to pre-act secure. And also we added English for the pre-act because that was not showing up as one of the subjects. We added all to the subjects. So now you can, if a particular assessment and accommodations is for all subject areas, you can select all. We added tooltips for 2 different dates that were on there because we heard there was a little bit of confusion on what to put in those date fields. So now if you rest your cursor on the date of determination or the date of implementation, it'll give you a little message that tells you what information should be going in there. And then we merged, there was 2 checkboxes. One was for accessibility supports and one was for accommodations. And so we merged those 2 checkboxes and relabeled that for one checkbox. It's accessibility supports and accommodations. Either they're needed or not needed. And when you check they are needed, then you'll see the boxes display for entering your accommodations and your assessments. Okay, so then on the EIDA preschool tracking log, on the advanced report, we encountered an issue with the percentage calculating correctly. So we made a few modifications to that advanced report. And just a quick note too on the advanced report, because we did make those changes. When you're reviewing it, you will have to reprocess it to see the changes that were made. So it may be unprocessed when you go in and look at it. So just process it again with the correct date ranges of July 1 of 22 to June 30th of 23, and you'll see those corrections. Added a property to all of the special education and gifted documents. We had done this last year at the end of the year for the IEP. So when the documents are transferred from one district to another, when you clicked on make them a live document, it would put them in draft form. So now they'll stay, if the document was in final status in the previous district, it'll show as final status in the receiving district when you click on make it a live document. It was a property we had to add added to the platform, and we added it to all of those documents, all the special ed and gifted documents. So when they come in, if you need to make changes, if you make it a live document, say on, say the gifted eligibility, you have to make an amendment or revision to the document for that. So that was what that change was all about. And we listed all the documents that we changed in the release notes. So when you, when the update goes out, you'll see it in the release notes next week. Made the grade level in field, school fields editable in the functional behavior assessment section of the VIP. And then on the referral for gifted services form and the gifted eligibility screening determination form, it was next to the teacher fields, there was just a text box for text for typing in positions. We made that a drop down with selections from Emily that gave us the selections that would be in the drop down list that you can pick from. Next
All right,
slide.
Gail, before we
Oh.
go to the next slide, Dina
Yeah.
has had her hand up. I'm going to let her come off mute.
Oh,
Hey, Dina, you can talk now.
It wasn't me. I'm sorry. I don't have a question. If it's up, I don't see it being up. Sorry.
Oh, okay. That's okay. It's showing. I want you to know this has happened a couple of times. I think I have a ghost living in my house that does this. So I'm sorry about that. And Gail, I'll go forward.
but let
There we
me
go.
apologize and say, if you do have any questions while we're going through these, we'd be more than happy to answer your questions. Okay, and then to continue down a few more items on the release, gifted eligibility screening determination form. We had a request to add the school name in the header. So we added the school name in the header on the document. And then we also had from time to time that somebody was able to select eligible yes when there was not a yes in the E column. So we made that change. So if there's a yes in the E column, it will check eligible yes. All right, and then notice and consent for reevaluation. This was a change that we made part of this change before, where if second attempt was added, then you did not have to put in the date notice received in public agency. But we added to that also because it was requiring you to put in the parent signature and the date. So now if second attempt date and date are entered, you will not be required to put the parent signature, the date, or the date signed received in public agency in there. All right, and the IEP student profile section 2, transition needs checkboxes we will display with related services. So before, what was happening is you responded to a question: is transportation needed as a related service, yes or no? And if you said yes, then it would show you the checkboxes below it for transportation needs. And we're displaying that all times now, so it won't be hidden, regardless if you check anything in related services. Notice of IEP team's decision regarding reeval. Added an insert icon to add additional attendees. This was also something that came in through the ideas portal, and we presented it to the state. And so there will be a little plus sign so you can add additional folks if you need them for those that attended the meeting. And then record of access to student records document. There was another request that came in through the ideas portal that we presented to the state. They wanted to add other. And so we added in your key at the top of the screen, category 7 for other. And so you can now make that selection. Any question on any of the items that I've gone through? There's a few other little things that I did not add on the list, but you will see them in the release notes.
I don't see any hands, Gail, so I'll move forward and give them some time to think about that. Maybe they'll have questions at the end. All right, Gail, thanks so much. Dana is up
Thank
next,
you.
and she's going to share some trends for the support cases over the last couple of months.
All right, so as usual, this time of the year, we tend to see more duplicate students that show up whenever they're enrolled and they search for the student and then they find them, and it's not always the correct ID that goes along with that student. So of course, when that happens, we have to merge those records in PowerSchool special programs once they are fixed in the SIS. SIS always has to drive the data, so make sure the data is fixed in SIS before we try to fix anything in special programs. We've been getting calls of, excuse me, calls, of course, in regards to the child count errors, such as the LRE code, and then, of course, they're not enrolled in the current year. If you're finding that all of your students are not enrolled in the current year, then most likely your global child count date has not been updated. And Kamichi went over that when she first started her presentation. So that's going to be found under your administration configuration profile types and then the globals. The special education history profile that was added last year is where the LRE code, as well as your special education start and end dates, are being stored. And then they are being sent to your special programs, special education profile. And so if the data is not on the history profile, of course, it's not going to be correct on the special ed profile, which is where the child count errors are looking at. If you're missing the IEP icon at the top of the page indicating that the student is active and has a current IEP, just know that everything again goes to that special ed history profile first, and then everything gets pushed from there to the profile. And once that occurs, as long as the student is marked active and has been marked eligible for special ed services, then they will get that IEP icon showing up the following day. We've also seen where there are student contacts that are not being sent to PowerSchool special programs. Typically, that's because they are expecting them to show up as soon as they import the student from general ed. However, the contacts is a separate import that occurs each night. So once the student has been imported into special programs, then that night their contacts will show up the next morning once that has occurred. That's the same thing as if you were updating a contact to mark them receives mailing in SIS. It's not going to update automatically into special programs. That has to occur overnight. So just be patient and know that that's going to occur in the overnight imports that you have. Okay, next slide. Transfer envelopes. We've had a few calls about this recently. When you're trying to send an envelope to another district, or you're importing a envelope from another district and they have a document in there that has a very long name that came from sets. If that occurs, we of course need to get a manual or a hard copy of that document and upload it back into your special programs as a file-based document with a much shorter name. Then you can remove the old document, and then you'll be able to send that envelope to the district that's looking for it, and then they won't have any more issues importing it as well. If you have any problems with that, of course, always just put in a ticket and I'll be glad to help you with that. And always make sure you're checking your import logs for errors, because sometimes your students are missing their integration IDTs, or the integration IDT that they have is not the one that matches what's in SIS. And we need to make sure we get those updated. And I'll be glad to walk you through that process if you need help with that. And
All right.
Support.
Thanks, Dana.
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody have questions for Dana? All right. Moving right along. Let's talk about
one. I'm sorry. I
Yep.
saw one question from Susie Rich on how to make something a live document. So I wanted to go ahead and say that while we were on here to make it just a little bit easier to understand. When you transfer an envelope from another district and you look at the documents once they're transferred in, then you're going to see what it looks like, a little backwards arrow. And if you hover over that little arrow, it'll say make document live. And that's how you would make that document live, so that you could edit it if necessary. If you're only needing to view the document, then you would click on the name above that that says transfer document. And that way you can view it without making it live, because you only need them live if you're going to be making edits to them, such as a progress report. Hopefully that helps.
Yes, I was getting ready to say, hopefully that helps. If it doesn't, raise your hand and I'll be glad to let you speak to Dana to get some clarification. Susie said yes, thank you. All right, Susie, I'm glad we could do that. All right, so let's move along to some best practices. So I wanted to talk about how you can share reports between your locations or with anybody who is using special programs off the same database, which is the state. And you can do this if you've got a great report, you just want to get it out there because it might help someone else. And we know our reports do save us some time. So you're going to go under reporting, standard reports, and then you're going to go to the utilities dropdown from your standard report landing page. And then from there, you're going to pick download report definition. So you're going to have to download the report to be able to then upload it and send it out. So once you select download report definitions, you can see over there in box number 2, you can pick any report that you want. So you can bulk download these. And then once you have checked them, check the checkbox, you just hit download marked reports. And that is the first step of being able to share that report out. The second step is going to be that you're going to need to upload the report definitions. So this time it's still reporting standard reports utilities, but this time you're going to do upload report definitions. The box that pops up looks like this over here in box 2. There are some options that you need to consider. Where is this report going? Do you have a special folder in the ownership category? You might want to create one. Then you have some options of for reports that are originally in a category to retain them in the category during the import. And then there are some security group associations and publications that you'd have to determine, as well as replace existing reports with duplicate names. So there are a few decisions that you'd have to make. You're going to hit the select button to upload that XML file, and then you'll click upload. So at that point, you've got the ability to take that report, and then you can send that report out to share with others. That report can be published to someone's desktop. That could, people can subscribe to that report, and all of that's going to show up on your home screen. Gail, did you have anything to add to those 2 features? Did I miss out on any important information?
So when you download it, can you go back to that screen for a minute?
Mm-hmm.
When you're downloading it, you're going to make sure you understand where it goes, because if you're going to send it to somebody, you might, because it's going to go to your downloads, but you can send it to a folder or something on your desk if you want to save those somewhere, so that if you want to send it to somebody else later, you don't have to download it again unless you made modifications to the report. But that's one thing with downloading that report definition. And then when you're going to select it when you're on the receiving end, say someone sends that file to you, you can put it in a folder somewhere on your computer, in your downloads, or even in your documents if you've got a special folder that you want to designate for reports. And then when you do your selection, you're going to go to that particular folder where that document is to upload it. It's important, like Robin said at the top, it defaults to what's called an import. It'll create a new import category for a folder, but you can drop that down and it'll show you all your existing ones. Or at the very bottom, it says create a new category. So if you wanted to create a new category of call it special reports or reports from others, something like that, then you'll know where those reports are when you go to look for it to run it later.
Thanks, Gail. Thanks for that clarification. All right, so there was also some discussion about some reporting security. So I just wanted to kind of remind you about where you can access that reporting security and do some changes. So we're going to be this time under reporting standard reports, and then under the utilities dropdown, you need to select set reports properties. And I just realized I have a typo right down here in my click path. I'm going to fix that before I send it out to you, Stacy. And once you select set report properties, then you're going to be taken to a screen that looks like this, where you're going to have all of the reports. And beside that, you're going to have a little blue ellipse. So once you click on that blue ellipse, you're going to get the choice. You can rename that report category, or you can change the security for that report. And in doing so, that takes you to screen 3. If you click on security, you can then go through and you can grant or you can deny which security groups can access the reports in that category. So this is setting report properties for that category. And I will fix my typo before I send it out for those of you that use these slide deck notes. Additionally, you can go into a report itself and also provide security for the that section of that document, and you can enable the access for your security groups as well. So this one is actually where you have gone to standard reports, and then you select that report and you go into the report to fix that security there as well. So just some little tidbits to keep in your mind as you're working with your security groups and your reports going into the new school year. That way you can kind of make sure the correct groups are getting access to these reports that you're creating. So I talked a little bit about this on the national Power Up just the other day, and I just wanted to point it out to you. As a user, when I used special programs, we used our events log daily. You are going to access it in the actual student. You're going to be in the student's profile. And this is a place where you can go add events. Events are added automatically and events are added manually. So going in and clicking on events, that events tab is going to give you the option to select new event button where you'll create your own event for things such as when I made a phone call, I put it in here. When I sent something home with a student, I put it in here. If there was a disciplinary problem with one of my students and the teacher came to me, I would add these notes here. And that gave a running record, so to speak, for me, for that student, in case I ever needed it for any type of a meeting. You can filter these by year. You can filter them by manual entries versus automatic entries. You can filter them by category. They are going to come up by category. If you look at my example here, you can see a lot of these first ones was me going in and playing around with documents, probably preparing for a power up. You can use the search menu, a search option as well. So a great tool to have. You can also print this out. If you are still a paper copy person like I am, you can always print these out so that you have them on hand if needed, especially if you want to share them with someone else. So that's about events. By the way, events are also reportable, so you can pull information and create reports using events. All right, and the next one that we also used in our district, especially our supervisors, we used our audit log, and that the audit log is going to be available under the profile page that you land on when you're in a student's profile. And that also is going to be categorized by the category. You're going to see the name of the date and the user, and then you're going to see the description of what that user did. This is also searchable by date, and you can also determine how many days you want to include. This is also, you can send this to an Excel spreadsheet, or you can print it out. So this is, if anyone that is touching this profile, you're going to see the events for that affected that student's profile by looking at the audit log. So again, that's going to be under the More button on the student profile landing page. Any questions about any of those topics before I move forward? All right. So I've got some information about the National Power Up over here on the left. Remember, National Power Up is going to give a very high-level overview of features and processes within special programs. Our next one is going to be October the 10th. That Power Up is going to be based off of the topic is going to be security. I'm still at this point trying to decide, what I'm going to add to that slide deck. So if there are any ideas that you'd like to push along that might be good for everyone nationally, please send that my way. In November, our topic is going to be utilities and transfer envelopes. Please notice that our office hours in November are back-to-back with special programs due to upcoming holidays. In December, due to the holidays, we will not have power-ups or office hours. And I just realized I failed to put on here that September the 20th, which is next week, will be the next national office hours. And that topic will be related to the keyword and profile presentation that I just gave this week.
And Robin, I will say that I've got a link. So everybody on the call, that weekly newsletter that I sent out, there is a link for you to register for that national office hours next week as well.
I'm so glad Stacy keeps you guys organized. Y'all are so lucky to have that organization. And also keep in mind, I've mentioned this before, I'll mention it again, in order to register for the Alabama power-ups, you do get that registration via email. You guys are lucky. I only have 2 state power-ups, Alabama being one of 2. So we do register you guys a different way, and we send you the recordings a different way for the Alabama power-up. Everything that's national related, you can access through the Events Hub and Community. So keep your eye out. We'll be having the next Alabama Power Up next quarter. So we'll end out our year with some good information. All right, it's open Q&A time. So I am just going to just kind of moderate here. If there is anyone, looks like there is still one question in the Q&A. For our out-of-state kids, what are the requirements to count them on child count this year? Anyone on our panel or anyone on the call able to help Leslie out with that question or that answer to that question?
Kamichi, are you still on the call with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Leslie has a question for our out-of-state kids. What are the requirements to count them on the child count this year?
If they have an IEP from out of state, you will enter those dates in special programs. But in our child count HIP document, I think it's on page 12, there's directions regarding in-state and out-of-state transfers.
Okay, thank you, Kamichi. Appreciate that. Anyone else? I'll be glad to let you come off mute. Just raise your hand. Any other questions?
So Michael just put in the Q&A, Kamichi, this one's going to be for you as well. What if a student comes to us from out of state, but there's not an IEP available? Can we still count the student?
I'm thinking. I want to say no, but give me a call and let's work through that.
All right, Deborah has a question. Deborah, you can unmute and ask your question.
Okay, I was typing it, but I'm not sure if you all can assist with this. It's a little off topic, but I do not have administrative rights in special programs. Therefore, I cannot submit any of my state reports. We've tried at the district level to rectify this. I don't know who to turn to now.
Have you tried putting in a support case, Deborah, with our support team to see if they could work you through that, or do y'all or put whatever your process is for entering in technical support?
My our tech coordinator sent something in, So
So do you know who your special programs administrator is, or was it somebody that left your district?
it is Melissa Dyer. She moved to a different position, and
Okay.
I assume the role of coordinator, but I do not have those rights.
Okay, yeah, so that support ticket will help. They can reset that for you.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? While you've got them on the call, if you've got any more questions. All right. Well, it sounds like maybe we're at the end of our call today. I don't see any more questions coming in the Q&A and no one has their hand raised. So I do want to thank you for joining us today. It's always great to get a big team like this together and talk about some great overarching ideas and best practices. Look forward to seeing you again in Q4, and hopefully I'll see some of you on the office hours next week or in October when we have our National Power Up. Thanks so much for joining today. Oh, we have someone else. Bobby, you can come off mute. Bobby, your hand is raised if you'd like to come off mute.
Oh, she's gone.
Okay.